Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, welcome. Thank you for testifying.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. On Tuesday of this week, this committee's Oversight Subcommittee conducted a hearing on the systematic scrubbing of law enforcement and intelligence materials. Your department was invited to attend, and the Department of Homeland Security refused to attend the hearing. At that hearing, we heard testimony that described a systematic effort. If one compares, for example, the 9/11 Commission report, the word jihad appears in that report 126 times. The word Muslim appears in that report 145 times. The word Islam appears in that report 322 times. And yet, since that 9/11 Commission report, different policies have come into effect. And as a matter of systematic policy, those terms are no longer allowed to be used in this administration. The FBI counterterrorism lexicon uses the word jihad 0 times. The National Intelligence Strategy of 2009 uses the word jihad 0 times. The Strategic Implementation Plan to Prevent Violent Extremism of 2011 uses the word 0 times. The National Intelligence Strategy in 2014 uses the word 0 times. We also heard testimony from a former employee of the Department of Homeland Security, Phil Haney, that in October 2009, more than 800 Customs and Border Patrol documents were ordered modified, scrubbed, or deleted to remove references to jihad or the Muslim Brotherhood or other similar references. Was Mr. Haney's testimony that the Department of Homeland Security ordered over 800 documents in CBB altered or deleted? Was that testimony accurate?
I have no idea. I don't know who Mr. Haney is. I wouldn't know him if he walked in the room.
So you have not investigated whether your department ordered documents to be modified in 2009 to remove references to jihad, radical Islamic terrorism, the Muslim Brotherhood. You have not investigated that question?
No, I have not taken the time to investigate what Mr. Haney says, no.
And when the United States Senate Judiciary Oversight Committee conducted a hearing on that, did you or anyone in your staff inquire into those issues?
No, but you have me right here, right now to ask questions of. So
but apparently your answer is you don't know. I am asking you, in 2009 and again in 2012, Mr. Haney testified there were 2 purges, and that was the word he used, purge, at the Department of Homeland Security to remove references to radical Islamic terrorism. Is it accurate that the records were changed?
Same answer I gave you before. I have no idea, sir.
You have no knowledge of any records being changed at the Department of Homeland Security?
Same answer. I have no idea, sir.
Would it concern you if it was accurate?
Senator, I find this whole debate to be very interesting, but I have to tell you, when I was at the Department of Defense giving the legal sign-off on a lot of drone strikes, I didn't particularly care whether the baseball card said Islamic extremist or violent extremist. I think this is very interesting, but it makes no difference to me in terms of who we need to go after, who is determined to attack our homeland. The other point I'd like to make, sir, is that, and I have to think in practical terms in Homeland Security, I think this is all very interesting, makes for good political debate, but in practical terms, if we, in our efforts here in the homeland, start giving the Islamic State the credence that they want to be referred to as part of Islam or some form of Islam, we will get nowhere in our efforts to build bridges with Muslim communities, which we need to do in this current environment right now that includes homegrown violent extremists. They all tell me,
my time is limited for this
Hold
question.
on just a second, please. They all tell me that ISIL has hijacked my religion, and it's critical that we bring these people to our side to do this.
You're entitled to give speeches other times. My question was if you were aware that the information has been scrubbed. I would note the title of the hearing on Tuesday was Willful Blindness, and your testimony to this full committee now is that you have no idea and apparently have no intention of finding out
That's not what
whether DHS materials have been scrubbed. And you suggested just a moment ago that it's essentially a semantic difference. Well, I don't believe it is a semantic difference, that when you erase references to radical jihad, it impacts the behavior of law enforcement and national security to respond to red flags and prevent terrorist attacks before they occur. Let's take Nidal Hasan. Nidal Hasan, the Obama administration was aware he was communicating with Anwar al-Awlaki, a known radical Islamic terrorist. The Obama administration was aware that Nidal Hasan had inquired of Anwar al-Awlaki the permissibility of waging jihad against his fellow soldiers. And yet the administration did not act, and Nidal Hasan walked through Fort Hood in my home state of Texas, murdering 14 innocent souls, yelling Allahu Akbar. Do you think it was a mistake not to respond to those red flags ahead of time and prevent the terrorist attack at Fort Hood?
I disagree with your factual predicate. Those are not the facts.
What do you disagree with?
I disagree with your factual predicate.
What specifically do you disagree with, sir?
In 1 minute, I couldn't possibly answer your question.
Pick anything.
It was wrong in a number of respects.
Pick one thing, sir.
First of all, you're assuming that the federal government, in advance of the attack on Fort Hood, saw all these different red flags. That's not correct.
So are you testifying to this committee? Let's take the facts I introduced one piece at a time. You are an experienced attorney. Number one, was it true or false the Obama administration knew before the attack that Nidal Hasan was communicating with Anwar al-Awlaki?
Well, how are you defining the Obama administration, sir?
The Federal Bureau of Investigation.
The entire Federal Bureau of Investigation. I can't answer that question sitting here.
Okay, the answer is yes, and it is in public record, sir.
I can't answer the question.
All right, let's take another example. We have similar examples of red flags. The Tsarnaev brothers. Russia informed the United States they were affiliated with radical Islamic terrorism. We interviewed the elder Tsarnaev brothers. The Department of Homeland Security missed when the elder Tsarnaev brother went to Chechnya and met with radical Islamic terrorists. The administration missed when there was a public posting of the elder Tsarnaev brother calling for jihad. And in the Boston bombing, they set off pressure cookers, murdering 3 people and wounding roughly 180. Was it a mistake not to respond more effectively to those red flags and prevent that act of radical Islamic terrorism?
Well, I disagree with some of what you said, but I do believe that there were some lessons learned from that episode, sir. And I believe that as a result, we are doing a better job of connecting all the right dots.
But, Mr. Secretary, the concern, and my time is expiring, so this will be my final question. The concern is this pattern of failing to connect the dots keeps occurring over and over and over again. It occurred in San Bernardino when the female terrorist gave a fake address in Pakistan, and yet the administration failed to discover that. It occurred in Orlando, where the terrorist was interviewed 3 times, has pledged his allegiance to al-Qaeda and to Hezbollah, had what was an associate of the first American suicide bomber in Syria, and yet we didn't act to prevent it. And what concerns me, and I believe should concern the Department of Homeland Security, is that because of this effort, scrubbing your law enforcement materials of any acknowledgement of radical Islamic terrorism, when you see the red flags of radical Islamic terrorism, you do not follow up on them effectively, and we have terrorist attack after terrorist attack after terrorist attack that could have been prevented but for this administration's willful blindness.
May I respond?
Yeah.
Please do.
Then we'll go to Senator Perdue. And then just to notify everybody, when we had that demonstration